Alright, in this video we'll be looking at solving for inequalities. So this is something that a lot of students have trouble with. So in solving inequalities, just treat them as an equal sign. So you have a greater than or equal to sign here. Don't worry about that too much. Just treat it as an equal sign for now. Okay, and then when we make our decision in the end as to what the solution set is, then we'll factor in this greater than equal sign. So if we look at here, we have an x squared plus 3x minus 4. This just basically looks like factoring trinomial with the imaginary 1 in front. So right away you go to your sum product and you ask yourself what two numbers that when multiplied, so the 1 and the negative 4, so you match those up and multiply them, you'll get a product of negative 4, and the sum is the term in the middle with its sign, positive 3. So what two numbers that when multiplied give me negative 4 and when added give me positive 3? So run through some of the terms. Negative 4 times 1, 4 times negative 1, and I think we can stop, right? This one here. 4 minus 1 gives me 3. Perfect. So I'm done. Now, in this question, because you have the imaginary 1 in front, these terms are essentially your factors. So you have x plus 4, sorry about that, x plus 4, and x minus 1, greater than or equal to 0. Okay, so we'll just rewrite that side. So these are your factors. Okay, now let's remember, if for example, let's do a little example here. Okay, if I had x plus 4 and x minus 1 equaling 0, what would I do? Well, you guys should know by now that you make each term equal to 0. So x plus 4 equals 0, and then you isolate x, so bring the 4 over and you get x equals negative 4, and do the same thing for the other one. X minus 1 equals 0, so from this part here, and bring the 1 over, you get x equals 1. So these would be your two numbers or your two factors of x. Okay, so basically what that would look like on a Cartesian graph, okay, if for example you had so the parabola, because this is about parabolas, right? That's what you're going to be learning in the next few chapters. So basically, let me redraw this one to be more accurate, guys, and you'll learn this in the chapters to follow. This one would look something like this. So sorry for my drawing, just to get the point. So it'll look something like that, where your function, it says, where does it equal 0? Well, it equals 0 at x equals negative 4. Okay, so at x equals negative 4, and at x equals 1. So it's not drawn to scale, but you get the point. So it's saying, where does it touch 0? So where does it, because remember, this usually is equal to what? Y, right? So when y equals 0, when your y-axis is at 0, that's here, what are my x-coordinates? Negative 4 and 1. However, in this case, it says the same thing, but greater or equal to 0. So we're saying that what are my numbers, or where is my graph greater or equal to 0? Well, it's greater or equal to 0 where? From this point, right? To here? No. Because from negative 4 to 1, my function is actually less than 0, right? It's negative. So where is it actually greater or equal to 0? Well, from where? From somewhere around here, right? When you extend it, from all the way negative to negative 4. And where else is it positive? From 1 to what? Positive infinity, right? So what you'd have to do is do your little box. Negative infinity to what? Negative 4, right? And at this point, you don't include it because you're not sure if it's exactly positive or negative, so you do not include. Union, again, you don't know if at 1 it's positive or negative. It's not, right? So you do 1 to what? Positive infinity. And you never include infinities. Is that okay? So I'm asking you guys, where is it greater or equal to 0? Well, that means where is it positive? Where is it above the x-axis? Well, from negative infinity to negative 4. and then union, so also 1 to positive infinity. Now let me ask you something. The hardest part here is, are the boxes correct? Well, you never include infinities, so you will exclude the infinity sign. Same thing here. But what about my -4 and 1? So at this point, at these points, -4 and 1, should we include these or exclude them? Here, I showed you guys to exclude them. Am I right? Little trick question. This would actually be wrong in this case. Why? Because it says, well, look at the sign. It's greater or equal to 0. So at -4, we don't know that it's greater, but we do know that it is equal to 0. So you have to actually include these. Okay, so a little trick question that I give you guys. If the sign was only greater than, then you would not include, right? Because if it was only greater than 0, at -4, that's essentially at 0, right? You can't say that it's greater than that. So you would have to exclude at that point. But because here we have greater or equal to 0, at the -4 point, that is equal to 0, right? On the y-axis, it's actually equal to 0, so you would include it. So let me draw back my 4. You would include it. Same thing for 1. At point 1, right? It's not greater than 0, but it's equal to 0. So you would include it. Okay, guys? So remember, the only time you exclude at the points is if you don't have the equal part. Okay, guys? So a little trick. Whenever you have the equal part, you'll include the points where it actually touches the x-axis. Alright? So that's essentially inequalities. If you have any questions, don't be shy to send me an email.